This is One Sentence News, a daily podcast featuring 3 news stories with a sentence-long summary and 1 sentence of context apiece. I'm Colin Wright. This is a sponsored message. I've been using Anchor as my podcast host for a while now, and it's been a pleasure to use. Anchor offers benefits that most other hosts do not. It's free to use, but it also has a collection of tools that allow you to create a podcast completely within the Anchor website or smartphone app. They distribute your show to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other distribution channels without any additional effort on your part, and you can make money from your podcast without any minimum audience size. So you can use it as a more traditional podcast host like I do, but it's also got everything you need to start a podcast from scratch. If you're keen to give it a shot, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022. Let's talk about the news. From the Associated Press, Pelosi starts Asian tour with speculation over Taiwan visit. Yesterday, U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi kicked off a long-anticipated trip around Asia. Part of that anticipation due to her planned meetings with leaders from Singapore, Malaysia, South Korea, and Japan. But those primary ambitions have been largely overshadowed by the possibility she might also visit Taiwan. A Taiwan visit by such a high-ranking member of the U.S. government would be a slap in the face to Chinese officials who consider Taiwan to be theirs, a breakaway island province that claims independence, despite being so close to the Chinese mainland. And threatening words have been hurled at the U.S. government by the Chinese government over the possibility that she might follow through with such a visit. Recent updates about the trip have not mentioned Taiwan, so it's unclear as to whether it's still on the docket or not. But those other visits are also important, as the U.S. is trying to build a more resilient trade and defense alliance throughout the Pacific to counter Chinese expansion and power in the region, and stronger relationships with those aforementioned countries would help a lot in that regard. From Al Jazeera, Iraqi protesters storm parliament for second time in a week. For a second time in about a week, supporters of the influential Shia politician Muqtada al-Sadr have broken into Iraq's parliament building to prevent a vote for a new prime minister. About 100 protesters and 25 security forces were injured this time around, which makes this second incursion a lot more violent than the first, last Wednesday. And these protesters reportedly plan to stick around until their demand that a pro-Iran politician named Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, who they consider to be corrupt, is no longer in the running for prime minister. Al-Sadr, for his part, partially blamed the country's Supreme Court for keeping him from forming a government, when he had the biggest faction in parliament but not enough seats for a majority, and thus not enough to become prime minister. And as a consequence, he and his party withdrew from parliament in protest last month. Iraq has been without a government because of that inability for any coalition to achieve a 2/3 majority in parliament for about 10 months. And from the Wall Street Journal, 3M to spin off healthcare business. Earplugs unit files for bankruptcy. Multinational material science conglomerate 3M has announced that it will spin off its healthcare business as a separate public company and will have its earplug sub-business file for bankruptcy in the wake of a slew of lawsuits. Those lawsuits are the consequence of allegedly faulty military-grade earplugs that thousands of veterans have blamed for their damaged hearing. 3M has said it will commit $1 billion to paying earplug-related claims and $240 million to pay for lawsuit-related expenses. That, branching off of the healthcare business, is a common way for big companies like 3M to organize their various products and services in such a way that their balance sheets are optimized for future profit and investment potential, and their decision to declare bankruptcy for their earplug division is a common means of protecting the larger umbrella company from legal issues faced by one segment of the larger business entity. It limits the potential maximum financial damage by walling off that portion of the company, a bit like amputating an infected limb. If you're finding some value in One Sentence News, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your podcasts and/or sharing the show with a friend. You can find out more about this show or subscribe to the email version at onesentencenews.com. And you can support this and other related projects, like the Let's Know Things and Brain Lenses podcasts, at understandery.com.